Hi everybody, I'm here today with James, and today we're having a hangout about nothing.
Yes.
That's exciting then, James.
Well, the clue's in the word, because from no thing you'll get something or everything. Everything comes from nothing. It's basically, think of a building. It starts as an idea. It's given to an architect, which then creates a blueprint, which then hand it to builders, who then construct a solid object. So it's gone from nothing to something.
Right.
That's how this reality works.
That's good, yeah. So we've got this picture
Yeah,
up. We've got this picture up. So why did you pick this picture?
why did I pick? Because of
Because
what it shows.
that's
It's
something,
actually,
isn't it? That's something, not nothing.
it's a design, basically. If you go across to the second picture like that,
Okay, we're going
the next
across
one in
now.
the
Next one. Yeah, that one.
right, you notice you've got toroidal fields there.
Mhm.
It's basically resembles an apple. You've got the earthing plane with basically what looks like a lens of an eye. That's where all your stars and things are. They're just basically like hole punch cards. If you sort of use your imagination and just pretend that you're on a star looking at Earth, right? You would basically get the same pattern. You'd have clusters of people, and then you'd have odd ones spread out, say, which would be like in the countryside as opposed to a city. It's a reflection, as above, so below. So we've got the same pattern, basically, that's shown in the sky as humanity on Earth.
And obviously the roots.
Yeah. Well, that then sort of reminds me of something else. But if you look at the sort of top of that, it sort of resembles like an apple. And that may explain why the southern hemisphere don't see Polaris and things, because it's sort of beveled. Not only that, it's the lensing effect of a convex and concave lens as well. So because we're on the inside of the construct, it pinpoints downward. That's why you get sunspots and things. But on the outside,
I don't believe in those anymore, James. Those things, right? I myself have filmed these things flying around the sun. And when there's loads of people, even Robert Forsh has caught them when he zoomed in. I made a video out of his. And so what you're seeing is those black things are them. Whatever those crafts are. I don't know how they get to be in the sun thing, but we don't know what that is and what dimension it is. We don't understand. The sun could be in the 10th dimension, but those things are there, flying around, and then they are the black things on the sun, and everybody thinks they're sunspots. I think they're crafts of some kind. I don't know how it works, because they're there and we can't get there and the whole thing, so I don't quite understand it, but I think they're the crafts that we see flying around.
It's basically it's a holosphere, so it can produce
yeah, and do you know
anything.
what? Where is J? Oh, I've forgotten his second. That channel got deleted. J something 36. Oh, whatever he was. I've really forgotten his channel now. That's not very good, is it? But he filmed the moon, and then he put filters on it, and you could see the moon was flat, and that obviously something rolls across it. But when he took pictures, it looks like the moon is some kind of glass that's been shattered but not broken through. It's like, you know, when if you break glass but it doesn't shatter, but you can see in it, and it looks like you're looking at another universe in there.
Which, in a way, it's like a sort of like the floaters of the eye. That's it suggests to me that the moon it's basically got like floaters, as it were. It does look like it's something that's been hit by things, definitely.
Yeah. I just was really shocked when I looked, when I saw his pictures. It looks like the outside is flat and it's been kind of shattered. You know what glass looks like when it doesn't break through, but someone shatters it, but it still stays formed. It looks like 2 or 3 of those have happened. And then when you look through, it just looks like a whole universe and stars and everything in there. It just looks really weird. Whatever it is, it looks weird.
Famously, Hillary Clinton. And
maybe that's heaven. Maybe we don't realise the moon is heaven.
Hillary Clinton sort of famously said when she sort of lost.
Yes, I remember that.
I think did about we've made we've tried to shatter the glass ceiling or something. And then if you think of London, you've got that thing called the Shard, where if you had not the toughened glass like you get on a car, but the laminated glass like you get on a house window. This is why they put toughened glass on car windscreens, because otherwise it would act like a knife. Oh, what's happened here? Oh dear.
But we are a construct where everything is about toroidal fields. We've got one of those round ourselves. Electromagnetic field.
Yeah, I mean that's basically what you're looking at on the screen is the same blueprint for us as for everything else.
It almost looks like there's someone sitting in the picture as well. You can see his feet and arms. You can see him sitting there.
If you zoom in on it, you'll see on that sort of lens bit in the middle, you've got the stars being shown there as well.
Yeah, we can see that.
So if you go across to the next picture, it sort of then you can see the same pattern starting to emerge.
Yeah, that's an eye, isn't it?
I mean, you've got that sort of the optic nerve with the red, but then it's also like a cradle. And if you think of with the ancient Egyptian, how they portray like a sun disk sitting on the head in like a cradle. You've basically got it sort of looks like you've got these domed parts and then these sort of iris parts that wear on, as it were.
It's called, the middle bit's called victrous humour.
Yeah. So the next picture after that is
oh yeah, and the bit we see through is called a pupil. We're a pupil. Oh, you want to go to the next one? Hang on. Next one. Right, there you go. That's a bit more detailed, that one.
Yeah, you've got basically the same sort of toroidal field pattern being shown there. Notice also as well, it comes up further on when they show or talk about true north and magnetic north, the eyes do exactly the same thing. You'll notice there's 2 lines that come from the optic nerve. That's sort of black line and the dotted line. It's like a copy, as it were, of.
Yeah, it almost looks like 2 lungs in there, James.
Yeah. Well, there's a blueprint to so many things, and it's like once you see it in one thing, you start seeing it in many other things as well. It's quite incredible, really. So I started thinking about the actual iris of the eye and how.
When you look at that, James, it's hard to think. I mean, who made us? How? What we need like a lung version in there. We need it to be a toroidal field. It's got to be an eye. It's got to have a pupil, an iris. It goes on, and the nerve, the optic nerve, to the central artery and vein, the retral artery and vein. Who could have made us like this? So
right.
perfect. Everything's so perfect.
Well, if you look at the world today, I think it's fair to say that most of humanity, in one way or another, are slaves to a system. So, for example, you have a job, but you can't afford to live near where you work, so you've got either rent or a mortgage to pay. then you need a vehicle or a mode of transport to get from A to B. So most people are tied up as debt slaves. Now, the giveaway with this is chromosome 2. It was Greg Braden who came up with a very good description. Imagine if you had something like Amazon and I'm trying to think of another big company like that. If they merged, you'd pick one financial department of one of the two companies. You'd want one distribution if they've got different ways of operating. So you'd pick the best from each. So chromosome 2 is a fusion of, as it's suggested, it's like a hominid.
Are we on the next picture, or are we just talking?
Just talking, really.
Right, okay. About nothing?
Yeah.
Carry on, James.
It seems that the earlier versions of humanity, like Neanderthal and Cro-Magnon, was too smart, and so that they were both annihilated. We've got this thing is referred to as junk or dormant DNA. It's everything in this reality is modelled on us, on our physiology. So, for example, like a mobile phone, it's got circuitry inside it, but until you download an app, it can't do, say, like using WhatsApp or something, or Messenger. Until you download the app, it can't operate until the conditions are right by having the app installed. So that sort of replicates us in that we've got this dormant DNA, which the usual thing with science, because they're coming from just one perspective of materialism, so they can't explain it, so they dismiss it as junk. But this is also why you don't have giants today, because the conditions are not right. The conditions would need to change to something more tropical.
Well, we do have giants, don't we? They're not very well. Most of them aren't very well and can't walk properly and the whole thing.
No,
most of them.
That's giantism. I'm talking about a normal sort of healthy human that would now be of 12 or 15 feet, because the conditions will have changed, so they will grow. This
we ain't going to grow when I mean, you know, I told you we live on the Wessex Downs, which seems to be a plateau. Swindon's on it, and then you go down this mountain, actually, it's called Blunsdon Hill, but it's got a peak on it, and then everybody else lives down there about half a mile down. So we're a bit closer to the clouds, but I looked it up and they said the clouds are between a quarter and a half a mile up. And sometimes they almost look like they're just passing the roofs. Like right now, it just looks like they're so close to that house. But obviously, for someone that lives the other side of Swindon, the clouds are going to look further away because they're lower down. But what I'm saying is, they're never going to grow taller then, are we, with the clouds so close?
Well, yeah, because the conditions would have to change. I mean, it has happened. You need a mesosphere. You need the sun blanked out with an ambient radiation. This has already happened in 1902. A man in his 50s and another man in their 60s. I forget the actual place, but there was a volcano that annihilated the entire population, a bit like Pompeii, that sort of scenario. So it had put up a cloud, and these two guys I think they were researching tropical fauna, they actually grew 2 inches in height because the conditions had changed. So
did they revert after they left? Did they get smaller or did they stay taller?
As far as I know, they stayed that new height, but obviously the bigger the being is in that sort of in those sort of conditions. If those conditions then change, they would be the first to.
But I've noticed it. I've noticed it in 2 generations. Like my mum is 5 foot, and I'm 5'6". My dad was supposed to be about 5'11", but with all his illnesses and everything, I'm taller than him now. I don't get that really. That's quite a lot of height to lose, but partly he's walking forward a little bit. But yes, you've got so I'm taller than my mum, and then my sons, their dad was 6 foot, and my son, 2 of them are 6'2", and one of them 6'3". So they ended up being a couple of inches taller.
Yeah.
Ellie is about an inch taller than me.
Yeah.
So it looks like for 2 generations everybody's getting taller.
Quite possibly, certainly if you look at sort of Tudor buildings and things, the doorways look very small. I'd have to duck it to go in a lot of these old timber framed buildings because the ceilings are very low. So generally, it does seem that humanity is getting taller. Only
we did get quite small because I know a place. It's past Avebury, you know. So when we went to see Silbury Hill and Avebury, you go on. Carn it's called. There's a row of them. The doors are about 4 foot high. They're great big doors. The people live in these houses, but the doors are really small. Do you think that's why they've got rid of so much stuff? Because they had to, because it's either too tall or too small. And they didn't want us knowing about all this stuff.
Well, for the last 58 centuries, you've got a repeat pattern every 138 years and another one of 792 years. And then there's a third object. When that one has appeared, that's when, after the Tower of Babel, suddenly you've gone from one language to 70 different languages, and then the next time this third object has appeared, we've gone from a 360 to a 365 and a quarter day year. But interestingly, the Mayan long count calendar accounts for this.
Well, do you know what? Very quickly, you know, me and Mickey got into a little bit. We saw it on videos and then we started to see it for ourselves. One was in a video of this church. It was in a children's home and it may not have ever used the church, which is why the tracks were still in there. But when we went to a church the other day, me and Mickey, a couple of weeks ago, we saw the tracks in the church. They were for big wheels and you've got to have certain arches in the church. And if those arches are there, that church would have had one of these wheels. And they were looking at astrology. It didn't seem that it had a congregation of people in there. The churches, the people there, whether they were pagan or whatever, because they were doing astrology, they were looking at the stars. And they've got rid of a lot of these things. They didn't want us seeing that.
Well, pretty much every ancient civilization has almost like an obsession with looking upwards.
Yeah, and we look down, and nowadays we look down at our phones.
Yeah, even the Vatican has got a telescope. So it's like, well, what are they looking for?
Especially as we now know that the stars, you know, like when you start off, you're always going, well, it's not 93 million miles away, the sun. It could be 700, 500, 400, 300. And over time, the distance of the sun has gone down and down and down. Now we're realising, I think multi-dimensional means it is in the black, because I've done high altitude balloon looking at them. The sun is up there, but it doesn't shine the black up. But it's still with us. It's still not very far away. It could be 10, 15 miles away. But it's in the clouds nowadays, isn't it? You can see it in the clouds, or just above the clouds. And I did a video the other day. I was sitting where I am now. I saw across the road the sun shining in the window across the road. But when I looked up, everything was grey cloud. So it had to be the sun was lower than the cloud. And I thought, wow, like, for goodness sake, it's lower than the cloud. Obviously, it's a little bit further away now. It's gone past us and it's shining back, but it still can't be that high if it's below the clouds and you can see the sun shining. But I've had this before. I'm sure I showed you, James. I was in my garden and the sun was leaving, but the sun through my hedge was almost on the ground. I was like, how can that be? I've got pictures on my phone of it. it's at the bottom of the hedge almost, and there's houses there, but the sun still was there. Isn't that weird?
The problem is, the problem with it is, it's the way I describe it, it's like you're sitting in a car which is parked inside a garage, and you're trying to describe the outside wall of the garage. We can only describe it from within it. We can't go outside to look from the outside and say, this is what it is. And
I mean, I've even come up with the idea that it was Robert Forsh's videos. I was watching him filming the sun, and I noticed that he was showing that the sun was rippling around the edge like the moon. And I thought, we know that the moon's got this bright light behind it, and I was thinking, the sun and the moon aren't actually the same thing. And so when we see the moon, the sun's on the other side. Do you see what I mean? And when we see the sun, the moon's on the other side. I don't know, but I don't know how Amy gets it and Gillian gets it. We cannot be seeing the same thing. Although I do realise when things are in the sky, you can see for further because there's nothing obstructing it. And I remember people saying that they could spot planes, and they knew that plane was about 150 miles away, but they could still see it in the sky. They might have binoculars, but they can still see it. So we can see a lot further in the sky. So that doesn't help us work out how far away the sun is.
Well, the way I see it is, it's like a telegraph wire that's hitting the ground, and what you're actually seeing is the interaction of two things. So what appears to be the sun is probably just a magnetic or electromagnetic, a bit like a baby's mobile on the ceiling, where it sort of goes round, and it's projected from the centre of the eye, in this case being the Earth. So say like the North Pole, everything would be coming up and beamed upwards onto a screen.
Is that why people at the moment, like a lot of people, I did look at some of them, because if I sometimes look at the moon through this window here in my office, it's double glazed.
Yeah.
But when I look through it with my eyes, it looks like there's two moons, but it isn't. It's the glass. It's the double glazing on the glass, and this person had done it through a plain window, which is double glass, and it picks up another reflection. But I have seen people going, look, there's the sun going down there, so what's that? And there's another bright light.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that because the sun's getting lower, James, and it's touching things, and it's making other things happen in our sky?
Well, you've basically got a spiritual evolution going on across all four life forms, as it were. By that I mean mineral life, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, and humanity. The only thing that distinguishes us from the animal world is this awareness of individuality. It's
I see the animals getting closer myself. It's squirrels. I mean, people have got tigers and lions as pets. If you have them from babies, usually those animals grow up like a cat or a dog. I thought that was really strange because they've always made it look. I mean, even monkeys are the same, and they make it look like these. But if they actually grew up around you, these animals would all be living in harmony with you.
Earlier, I was stroking pigeons, and they eat out my hand. It's beautiful. I'm starting to recognise them by the wing.
Mickey has lots of squirrels around him. I mean, I'm not saying I've touched one, but one really thought I was going to give it food the other day when I was leaving, and it came really close, and I was thinking, if only I had some food on me. But he was so close. I mean, I think squirrels are lovely. There's loads of them in Mickey's Park, but yeah.
It's that time of year where they start gathering for winter because they hibernate. So they will start, as the onset of winter comes on, they will become what will seem to be a lot more tamer because the hunger is driving them to look for help.
It's just, I think it's quite nice that the animals are getting closer, to be honest.
Well, this is a spiritual evolution, and
thing is, what most people don't realise is they're animals, and we're a bunch of animals with the animals. Really, that's how they treat us. We're just animals with the animals.
Well, that's system programming, because newborns don't come into this world like this.
No, babies think they're perfect.
Well, they are. They're,
Do you know, I love babies. Whenever I go out, I don't know, I always look at people in their eyes myself. When I see a baby, babies always look at me. I always feel that when the baby's looking at me, they're looking into my soul. That's what it feels like. They've got into my head. They're in my soul. And they won't stop looking at me. And their parents are going like, what are you looking at? I'm going, sorry, it's me. Because I'm a stranger to this baby. But the babies always look at me in my eyes and stand there. And then I think, well, maybe what that is a lot of us today, we don't even look at our babies. We're always, I've got to get the dinner, I'm watching Facebook, whatever it is, Facebook, and they're holding the baby, but they obviously don't talk and look at their babies enough. And then when they see someone that looks back at them the same, they're like, wow, look. They look into me.
Yeah.
And they're always smiling. They're always smiling and happy.
I observe this in town because of where I'm sitting. I'm eye level with a young child in a buggy, and they always notice 9 out of 10 children have this light in their eyes, which is hammered out through the education system and parent programming. Whereas with adults, it's made, at best it's 1 in 10 who've got this light in their eyes. The rest of them don't seem to have it. They seem to either be firewalled off. But the problem that new children have in this reality is they don't come in with the knowledge of the language, and because they've never vocalized. They've got a new vehicle to try and master. So I would say the best thing you can do with a very young child is talk to them face to face, eye to eye, and overemphasize the mouth movements, because they get frustrated because they're trying to learn by observation from everything they see, but they haven't mastered how to form the words. So,
but you know that, did you see that? I put it was ages ago, James. Babies do have their own language. They talk to each other. They know what these whatever that is. They know what it means. Babies do. They do have their own language. And you know what? That's so crazy, because you've said basically from being pregnant to being in this world, something dies because you were an amphibian in the dark, attached to something else. And then when you breathe, you've gone from that life into breathing. So that's strange, isn't it? And then babies come with their own language.
What it is, you've got 4 bodies. You've got the physical body, which is basically like a motor car. It's the thing that carries you around. On top of that, you've got your etheric body, your astral body, and your eye organisation. So we're made up of 4 parts.
No, material, physical, mental.
Yeah.
There's another one then, because you said there's 4. So it's
yeah, you've got spiritual, physical, emotional, it's astral, and then the individual awareness.
Yeah. Is that because I've moved the pictures onto the cable? Is that what that bit's about? Outside installation, inside installation, copper mesh and copper wire.
No, well, it is to do with the eye.
Right.
What you've got is imagination creates reality, and it is all done in feeling. If you have a thought of "I want," the response will hear the word "want" and assume that you want more feeling of want. So you have to go to the end and you overwrite the program and you impress upon the chemistry. And you say, if you want to be a millionaire, you convince yourself. It's basically fake it until you make it. You're impressing upon the body a new code. You're now writing your own script. So the expression about being open-minded. Well, the O, you could say, is taking as the whole or the organic. That leaves a pen. Now, it's not a physical pen because we're talking about the spiritual, but you're writing your life story with that pen. You're expanding that pen, if you see it as like a sheet pen. So you're expanding consciousness. What the system does, it takes this spiritual truth, because it doesn't have creativity or imagination. It can only replicate. So expanded consciousness has now become expanded waistline, because it's all in the material and all in the physical. So you'll get a thing called a drive-through. But because of the food, I use the word in inverted, the food that is on offer, the body cannot drive it through unless you've got a constitution of a seagull. So it accumulates in the body. So you end up with an expanded physical body rather than an expanding consciousness. They just take something and they mirror it. This is a pattern that this system uses.
To me, when you're saying all this stuff, it goes back to, you have to know who you are as a person. Otherwise, you won't make the right decisions, because if you don't know, you're always going to go, I don't know if I want that, do I? Yes, no, I'm not having it. So you're more like that with your answers. But when you know who you are, you know what your answers are, you know what you believe in. And then it can be, then you can go more into your, it's more soul-like then, isn't it? Once you know who you are. If you don't, like, especially if you believe in the telly, you're going to go, I don't know, I should have that. No, I don't know if I want it. And you're all like that all the time. So you're worrying about making decisions. And when you know who you are, you can make the decisions. And you stick with them because you know who you are. That helps then, because then it can be more spiritual, can't it? Because then you can deal with that side. Because you're free in yourself.
Well, what they're doing, they're playing the part of the adversary with adverts. So they're trying to entice you. So they're trying to put something into you. So this is the relevance of this coaxial cable. If you see the iris of the eye, that seems to be this electromagnetic interaction with the external. I'll give you an example. I'll give you a perfect example. Yesterday, I put out the wish into the universe that I'd like prawns. So today I've just had cooked wholemeal turmeric noodles with king prawns in a sesame, parsley and red chilli dressing. Should have retailed at £5.50, and I got it for absolutely nothing. It just appeared.
Really?
It's that easy. Yeah, it's the same as this phone.
Okay, I want to be rich. I don't want to work anymore. I know it doesn't quite work like that. It's not a material thing, is it? It just is more spiritual. I know you got the food, but... And often I find that with what information I know, it doesn't work for me. I can give information or help to other people, but what I give doesn't necessarily work for me. It works for other people. You can help other people.
Go back to that first bit you just said.
I can't remember now.
You said, I want to be a millionaire.
So I want to be a millionaire. Yeah.
Well, bear in mind, you're dealing with something that's not in the material, so it doesn't know what a millionaire is.
Yeah.
All it hears is so it'll like, okay, you want more feeling of want.
Right.
It's all about. I mean, this reality does another perfect example. A thing called B&B, bed and breakfast. Well, the bed is. This is the metaphysical now, not the material world. The bed is the rest. The breakfast is the spiritual food. They sort of flip everything into a physical, material version.
Mind you, that television's worked it out. It makes you, so you watch it so you know what you want, what you to eat, what to wear. It tells you everything.
I haven't got one, so I don't know.
No, but that's its purpose. So I move the picture on now, James.
Well, I was going to say, if you look, there seems to be some sort of interaction between our physical eyes and the external. So the iris I see as being like the coaxial cable. So yeah, if you go on to the next picture, that's an end-on view of that same thing.
Yeah, now it looks like an eye.
Exactly.
And we kind of know, though, don't we? They call it the dielectric. We know that our eyes have some electricity in them because that's what those lines are and everything in your eye. It's like someone's gone. That's the dielectric in your eye. Yeah.
Well, Ken Wheeler, Theora Apoptosis Channel, he's the only person that's really explains what electricity is. It's the hybrid of dielectric and magnetism. So with the magnet, you've got the core. It's a bit like if you do a cross-section of an apple. You've got the core, the hourglass part in the middle, and then it radiates out either side like an apple if you're in that cross-section. A bit like it's a toroidal field basically all over again. It's the same pattern. Yeah, so the next picture, if you go on to that one, it's got normal eye and a cataract eye.
Hang on, I'm just putting it over. Oh, okay.
And you can see the sort of way the light beam will go into the back of the eye with a normal eye.
Yeah, it's not just blindness, is it? It stops the light coming in.
So if you go across to the next picture, I'm surprised NASA haven't used this one.
What? No, so we've done the normal eye and the cataract eye. You want to go to the next one?
I don't know if that reminds you of anything, but I thought, has that been done by NASA? It's cataract types. But, you see,
oh, look, it's the stars, James.
That was my first thought when I saw that. I thought it's almost like, oh, that's where they've got the idea for all these planets in these renditions they give.
Well, we already know the pictures that they show of the sun, of this flaming ball, are ridiculous.
Well, what I've seen on YouTube videos where people have done films of what you see through a telescope, they don't look anything like the things NASA show. They seem to be like a lens with some sort of dancing, sort of a bit like tadpoles, really, in a pond. It's like these flickering lights with these really beautiful colours.
Well, do you know what? It was Jupiter, right? It's quite a long time ago. It must have been 2016, 17. And I had an iPhone. And you know, when you put an iPhone up, it either takes it or it doesn't. And 9 times out of 10, it doesn't. You know, if I want to take the moon with my old phone, it'd be blurry. But this one day, maybe it was the sky, there was no clouds, I don't know what it was. It picked up and Jupiter was next to the moon. And I took a picture of it and I blew it up and it looked like that. It looked like the one at the bottom with the black centre. It had a black centre and a lighter outside, and it stayed for about a week and then it went off. And I was like, I didn't know stars had, you know, my camera picked up, it had a black centre. So it looked almost like a tadpole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, they did. It seems like the same pattern with everything, to be honest. Next?
The next one was, I think it's a pyramid top.
It's the Great Pyramid of Giza, and I've added in because it's actually 8-sided, because you've got slight indentations on the what people would say were 4 sides.
I've seen walls like that. It was Giza. Giza, I can't even remember his channel. It's ages ago since I might try and find his name and put it in at this moment. But he showed us walls, and they were all made up that it was like musical notes could go through it. It was all, you know, because obviously people think, oh, it's got 4 sides, but it doesn't. There's 8.
Yeah. Well, that's basically how you get the Maltese cross. Funny enough.
Oh my God! It's the Union Jack.
I was just about to say, does it remind you of any particular flag?
It's the Union Jack. When we say that they're Roman Egyptian, because obviously the eagle up with flattened out looks like the Sphinx flattened out. It's an eagle and they've got a Sphinx. But we already know, so I always say it's Roman Egyptian usually, because it's all part of one. But there's the Union Jack. Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
You've only got to look at a map of the British Isles and look what sits above it. Does it not sit under the Faroes still?
Yeah, that's right, the Faroe Islands, and we already know that an Egyptian princess married a Scottish, what do you call them? What they called the what's the name knights? You know, when they went out with the cross on their thing and they got money. What are they called?
The Knights Templar.
That's it, the Knights Templar. She married a Knights Templar, but that's the Union Jack. Yeah.
That's not the only connection, really, because this island is described as the United Kingdom.
Do you know what, James? I've struggled with this a little bit, you know, because we're looking up at the sun and the moon and that, but the moon comes out of the ground. The other day, it was so low to the ground, it was lower than the roofs. They come out of the ground. Maybe these things were to make suns and moons.
Well, if you think about it, if you watch any object flying across the sky, whether it be a plane or a bird, if it's going far enough, it will appear to go down, won't it? I know a plane does go down when it lands at an airport.
When he put his 360, they were goggles for games, but he could put his photographs of the sun and the moon in. It inverted you could invert them, and so basically, yeah, it was you could see the moon and that they came out of the ground and went into the ground in your perspective.
Yeah. The other thing to remember as well, we talk about the United Kingdom, but that was also what Egypt was referred to.
Well, I've heard. I put a video out. It was old. One of them they did was about there was two King Arthurs and they make him one. So when we look at history, there's only one King Arthur, but there was two, and they were about 200 years apart. And he also talked about that fact that England was where the first person was crucified. Religion started here, and they took it to Europe. And he was explaining that, and I thought, wow. So basically, we are Israel. Whatever they refer to in the Bible as Israel and Jerusalem, or that, it's here. It's in England. And that's probably why the United Kingdom runs everything.
It goes back further than that, but
and also you've had different Romes in America, and they got rid of those names, but we had them all. And then we've just done like you know, I couldn't believe it. I was somebody said on my George III, and so that was George Washington and the Constitution. He asked me a question, and I made a video about it. It's out on Sun and Moon. And I looked up the coins, and I couldn't believe it. I saw Washington with a laurel on his head. Have you ever seen Washington with a laurel on his head?
I think possibly on a postal stamp, but I can't be certain.
You know, usually showing with the sideburns and the suit, but he had a laurel on, and then at the same time you've got George III, and when you see him, he's got a laurel on, and he looks like, you know, when we watched Cleopatra in that film, what was that? Not she, what was that? Mark Antony in that. We watched that when you stayed. Well, you know, the big film with Cleopatra and Richard Burton.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that one. All I'm just saying is, you know how Mark Antony was dressed up with his Roman stuff on? That's what he looks like in a coin.
Yeah.
And it's like, that was the 1700s when they would have had wigs and like little beauty spots on their faces. Well, that's what they've told us. Like, how could he go from that and then look like that on a coin? And I wasn't even sure whether some of the things about Washington, it looked like his hair looked very Indian-like. And some of them, they looked like they'd superimposed him on the top of someone else. That's what I saw.
Well, progressively, we've been moving more and more to a technological age. So at one time, you would have to physically burn books. Now it's basically one click of a button, and like all the Wikipedia entries overnight will change. So everybody then puts the computer on the next day, and you'll find miraculously Wikipedia updates very regular. Whatever you look at and get put in, and it's normally the first entry under any search. And if you look at the bottom of when it was last updated, it's incredible. Sometimes it's only within the last few days, and you think, what could they have added? It's normally a citation, but it's continuously being updated. So unless you get screenshots to compare, they can
Well,
just
I saw
rewrite
it for
history.
myself when we went to this church a few weeks ago, me and Mickey, in the crypt, which was probably the original chapel to the church. So that's what churches were, basically. It was just little chapels, and then they've been built on and built on. Not all of them, because there's one here in Thatcham along the road. That one, remember, it's 1300. That one wasn't, but most of the little chapels were built on and then they've turned into churches, except cathedrals. That's different. But yeah, I was looking at the stone in there, and it had son, Sonne. It had married with one R, Maried, and there was another word I spotted that I missed. There was another word spelt differently. So that was done, I don't know, in the 1600s. The spellings were different then.
Even in the 19th century, I've seen it in parish registers where the incumbent has put the entry down in a baptism, and it says father's occupation, and they've put labourer spelt without the U, with the U. But the succeeding incumbent, so we're moving more towards the 20th century, then spells it without the U. It reverts back to an older English. And I mean, you look at the American English.
Well, to be honest, we've done a whole thing when we were doing etymology, that basically the languages, everybody's language, they're the same letters, but say some of them, they're backwards or on their side. So that's how they've changed the language. That's how they've made the different languages. But they're all really, most of them are the same letters. They're just put together differently to make a different language.
This is the amazing thing. I mean, if you take pretty much all the European languages, you've got the same alphabet, and you string those letters or characters together in a certain order, it creates a spell. Now, you can have it in French or Spanish or English, and you'll have the same alphabet, and it can tell the same story, but those letters are all different. It's incredible.
I've just moved the picture on, James, and we've got a double pyramid.
That's the Merkaba. That's basically what I've seen. What the Great Pyramid of Giza is a representation of this. But this is obviously would be three sides.
Oh, I see. So we only see the top bit sticking out, and it's some of them are enormous, but most of it's under the ground.
No. Well, there is below the Great Pyramid. It's a cap over. It's like a
Oh, you think
basically.
that bit's missing on the pyramids? Is the orange bit on the top?
Sorry.
In the picture, you've got two pyramids. You've got a pyramid going through a pyramid. They're orange. The spike sticks out the bottom, but the bit in the middle, is that underground or should be on the pyramids, and that's what's missing?
That's from the non-physical realm.
Right, okay.
But
get that one wrong, Karen, but I thought that was kind of what the Big Dipper was doing. It was that kind of thing.
Well, it's a basis for so much anyway.
I even made a video. It's on my video. That's on Sun and Moon about the Big Dipper. And I was trying to work out what shape it was doing. And it was a bit like that. Like a double pyramid put together. But then I thought, because it's higher on the right and lower on the left. It's all bizarre, that is.
You've basically got the Star of David, the hexagram there as well, if you see it as two-dimensional, just tracing the outline of it. You've got two of the symbols of the four elements. You've got, I can't remember. I think it's fire. I think it's fire and air expressed on that one. I can't actually remember without seeing the illustration again. But in the physical realm, it's expressed as the Great Pyramid of Giza. Now, it should have white casing stones. Now, with human remains, the bit that's often used to identify a body and the hardest part to actually destroy is the teeth, which are coated with enamel. So the Great Pyramid of Giza, which would have had those white casing stones, 144,000, would you believe?
Wow.
That encodes so much. I forgot to get a sketch pad, but I'm going to be doing a how do I describe it? An erotic picture of a church building, of what it's because it's showing human physiology. Everything in this reality is based on human physiology. The mobile phones and devices, they do the same thing as the human body. The process of death, which takes 3 years, is like it's like when you do a reset on a phone. The screen goes blank and it feels like it's gone dead. There's nothing happening, but then it reactivates again.
So basically, that double pyramid is a tetrahedron.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's the fourth dimension, is a tetrahedron.
Well,
and
I don't know. The problem with this is, if you go in a car and go on a journey, you've got a time interval and a space interval. With this sort of thing, going into different dimensions, it's instantaneous. So there's no sort of physical path that leads to it. So the point of reference is completely different. I mean, I have seen this thing, not in those colours, but I have seen that. I've seen it as like a magenta light, and there's like a white light right in the middle of it. The next picture is like another expression of it. You can also see a cube in that, and you can see the crosses or the X's on the sides. But it's showing this basic same thing again. I just thought that was an interesting sort of comparison, really.
Yeah, about nothing, James. We're making a good hangout about something, but yeah.
Well, nothing.
It would be really great if we could see in more dimensions, James. If, say, we were 8 dimension through our eyes, we'd see so much more, wouldn't we? But we don't. We see it in the 3rd dimension, and we see it the way we do.
Go across to the next picture, the one with the eye.
Aha, we're on that one.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting with the number sequences of the time and the percentage. That's why I left it on there. But it's two eyes to look and one eye to see. You've got a pyramid expressed between the what is called the 3rd eye and the 2 physical eyes. Because the mind's eye doesn't have a physical form, so it's not like a cyclops where you've got an eye that's actually looking out into the physical world.
I know, that's the crazy thing about what you explain what a soul is, because it's your eyes are the window in. It's the eyes, and you just explained all that. It's like a cable, and then all that stuff that goes on, and then the cable itself looks like an eye as well as having an eye. And it's all, it's quite crazy, really.
The next picture, the stereoscopic vision, is an interesting one. How the 2 eyes work together to give you depth perception as well.
I think it's crazy that we never see our nose.
Well, you can see it I can see one side if I shut my right eye and look.
Yeah, if you shut one eye, you see the side of your nose, but when both of them are on, your nose isn't there. You get a full view, yet really your nose is in the way.
The next picture explains that the stereoscopic vision that we have, because the eyes are 6 to 7 inches apart, and as it says there, this allows the slightly different picture that is integrated by the 2 eyes.
Wow, yeah. And also, don't forget, they even say things like we only use 5% of our brain. They tell us that everything's turned upside down, so we're seeing everything upside down and our eyes turn it around. I don't think that's true. You know, whatever it is, it's still the same, and it's FLAT. You know, we're not living on something floating through space. So that's all crazy, isn't it? How can we be seeing upside down and then your brain turns it? I don't believe that. I think we see it the way it is.
The glimpse, the very brief, and it is like a split second view that I got was that sort of ball with the lots of spikes that has been predominant in a hot topic since March 2020, shall we say, without actually saying keywords, but I think you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
As far as from what I could see, we're put into this thing, or our consciousness is put into that, and then put into a virtual body set rather than a headset in this reality. So we're actually at what is described as our higher self, is coming into this realm to experience things. Now, I see this like the same way that you have in this reality with a factory. So you've got a timeline. It's linear. So you've got like a production line. Now within that factory, and this is pretty much with any product. Say we take a mobile phone. They will do all sorts of tests, like dropping it from a height, temperature tests, and all these different things. It's a diagnostic zone. So the way I see this reality is a diagnostic zone. It sort of makes sense. Why does man seem to go against nature? Well, I feel that it's by design to test things out here. So the real Earth that this is a carbon copy of, it's not contaminated and causes chaos outside. It's all contained within this realm. It's basically like a huge computer game, really. It's a whodunit.
Yeah, we're living in virtual reality.
Yeah. It's like there's no
Everybody's
rational
watching games
explanation.
for it and thinking, wow, look at this virtual reality game. But that's what we live in. We're multi-dimensional in a virtual reality, somehow simulation thing.
Well, there's a very precise...
I better not wake up and find I'm a blob somewhere and I've had this interaction down here and I was Karen here, but I'm really this blob somewhere else.
Well, the physical body is part of this realm, and it seems to be that anything can come into this realm, but it can't get back out again. Once it's physical, that's it. I mean, the human body, once it's expired, is called remains, and it does remain here, but the eternal essence, the spirit, that doesn't. This is happening more and more. It's a bit like those Etch-a-Sketches. When they wear, and you do that slide bar across, it's supposed to clear the previous image. But when they wear, they start leaving impressions and traces of the last image. So this is why young children sometimes have these memories of past lives and are able to come out with things. It's like, well, the rational mind will say, well,
Ellie did when she was little. She told me that she told me about the age of 3 that she was talking to all these children in a workhouse where she used to live.
Yeah. She's very spiritual, actually. So I don't doubt that for one moment.
She's lost it right now. When she went to senior school, she turned into something else, a BITCH. Life was different there. It's all about bullying and that. But when she was younger, she was very spiritual, Ellie.
Well, this is what the
I was
system...
like, say that again. I used to live in a workhouse, she said. I think she was telling us there was a fire there. I can't remember now. It's so long ago. She was about 3. Well, I remember that. I was thinking, wow, she told me that. But anyway, yeah. James, what's the next picture then?
Well, the next one is another... Good grief, fireworks gone off out here. It's another stereoscopic...
That looks a bit like, if you take away what it is, because obviously this is an eye and how it all works into your body, but that looks a bit like the poles. The Earth poles.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. The magnetic and true north, when they show it, they're not quite the
same. We are actually living in an eye.
The circle with the cross is an old symbol for Earth as well.
Right.
And you also, if you were to turn that on its side, you've also got the Star Trek symbol and the NASA symbol basically being shown there as well.
Wow.
The reason there's a theme here as well. we talk about spirit's eye, we talk about reflections, and I say that everything you see in the sky is an interaction of ether, or this glass screen, as it were, and it's an electromagnetic beam, and you see it once it interacts with the ether, a bit like electricity. You see the spark.
It's a kind of yeah. It's kind of the Union Jack again, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Well, if that Union flag, you've been double crossed.
Yeah, definitely.
A plus sign, and you've got the X, so it's a double cross.
You only know it when you do your homework. I was just so shocked to find that all the maps, all the flags of the countries fitted into it. You know, Jamaica is a different colour. It's green and yellow, but it has a crisscross, and it is on the crisscross of that star map. And so that's why I think the star map shows us what we're kind of living on, because everything fits into the Union Jack over the top. It's just, that's quite amazing.
Well, interestingly, I watched a short video on Iris Media. Billy, his name is, and he showed somebody else's video and said, I can't replicate it on the Google Earth exactly, but
well, I've got a video waiting to go out, James. It's only a little video. It came from TikTok, but this guy's just explaining that on our map they show us Russia is a great big piece of land, and it's bigger than South Africa. But really, say, what was it? I think Russia was 7,000, whatever it was, and but obviously Africa's bigger. So he said, so what he did was he took out the wrong dimensions and put the right ones in, and there's a lot less land on the map because Russia isn't the size that they say it is. Neither is Greenland, and in fact, when they did it, Australia was bigger than America. Can you believe that? Australia is bigger than America. So there's a lot less land than they're showing us. We're smaller than they say we are. But the big thing is obviously Africa's the big thing. Anyway, that video's waiting to go out. When I put that out, I'll send it to you. It's only a minute long. He's just explaining.
I was to say, what IRS Media shows is you can join up cities, and they're all six or mountains, and they're all 600 miles apart, and they form a star or pentagram. Because I know he's showed the star forts around the coast of the African continent, and would you believe they're all about, I think it's 600 kilometres apart.
Wow,
roughly.
And you know that it all had canals on it and everything, and star forts.
Yeah, I mean, you've got basically, I go with the principle of as above, so below. You've got internal and external, micro and macro. So with the Earth, you've got this grid system, and I don't think it's any accident. You've got oil platforms, gas platforms, star forts, even cities and things. You've got the Great Pyramid of Giza is on a cross section of specific lines. The City of London is on it as well. You've got what they call the Greenwich timeline and things like this. So the way I see in the sky, you've got magnetic sky tracks. So there's objects up there. One of them, at least, I would say, is putting in some sort of interference frequency into this realm.
Yeah, well basically, Boogeyman reckons that everything's on tracks up there, and that's what NASA's attached themselves to, is the tracks. Where the sun and the moon go, and the stars, obviously, they all have tracks they go on. So that makes sense, doesn't it?
Well, many channels have pointed to Earth and free energy. But as far as I know, I'm the only one that suggested that, well, what the question comes out to that is, what is that free energy being used for? So I would suggest it's electromagnetic, to keep things up there and keep them hidden.
Well, yeah, because the moon has keto and whatever it is, the other thing, and they are there. I'm going to the last picture. We've got the a section of the Great Pyramid of, what's that?
No, you need to go back one.
Oh, we've done that one. The crisscross. We were doing that. Okay, we've done that one.
It was the one with you've got a circle on the left with a cross in it, and then what looks like a Star Trek uniform symbol with the two eyes.
Oh yes, that one. Yes, there it is.
So the next one after that is, if you were looking down on the brain and the eyes, as it were, you've got the optic nerve with that cross. It sort of again represents toroidal fields at the bottom, and you've got with this optic nerve, you've got the red lines crossing over, but they also go left
it's
to left.
It's probably what we're living on is something like that. When that guy did that map and showed that obviously Russia is not the size they said it was, then, you know, all the land's different, then we probably live on something more like that. And they've made it look like we live on these great big bits, you know, like what they've done. I bet we live on something like that. And this is why we have to go to. This is why we have to go to America a certain way and stuff, because it's just the way it is, because that's what we live on.
In this picture towards the bottom, you've got those like 6 black blobs, as it were. So sort of around that, you've got like a U shape, like a magnet, being shown there as well.
You think you don't even know that's all happening at the time I'm looking at this picture, and it's all happening, and I don't feel anything. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you look with the optic nerve, it's all feeding to the back right to the back of the brain. It's incredible. Which also seems to resemble like a uterus as well. It's like the same pattern again. It's incredible. So yeah, the last picture with the cross section of the Great Pyramid of Giza. I've drawn these lines in to sort of emphasise what they call star shafts, but they weren't open to the outside, and they weren't open into the chambers. But what I think you've got here is a representation of the brain or human physiology being shown there. So the red lines, you could say, represent the eyes. The blue lines represent the ears. They're your sort of connections to the external world, as it were. And then I also see the King's Chamber representing the pineal gland, the Queen's Chamber as the heart, and that lower chamber as the gut.
Everything's going down then, James.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you think about it, with physical food, it goes down to the gut, and then with this wonderful thing happens.
Which is your real brain, because obviously if your stomach's not happy, you're not very well.
Well, when you put food into the stomach, it is then processed. And see how the material world now gives us processed food? They've used the same, like the same words, and it's like copying everything or mimicking, as it were. But yeah, I feel that this Great Pyramid of Giza is showing human physiology. It looks very much likely that the designer of that is also the designer of us, and therefore we have a code in us. This thing called this Great Awakening, I feel, is this countdown clock where our DNA will reactivate. It needs a change of conditions to this world, which I don't feel are that far away. It's being alluded to in a lot of the advert hoardings I'm seeing.
I think they've lost, and the AI's going mad. That's what I see. There's an AI going mad doing things, but they've lost, really. So many of us can see it now, the black eyes and things like that.
If you think about any devices, electrical devices, if you've got loads of things open and loads of programs running, one, it's drawing more power and it's starting to get very hot. Now, where is the limit of this harvesting of free energy? Going with the idea that they're using it to electromagnetically keep
Well, you
things
know
up there on
what?
Sky.
A lady in Newbury, she moved into her flat and she told me that the electricity came from the ground. They put rods down. And someone else was talking about it. That's how they used to do the old buildings. This is why they didn't need boilers or anything like that, because they were harvesting it from the ground, which would be so much more eco-friendly. We wouldn't need pylons. Oh, it's ridiculous what they've done to us, all to make money.
Well, that's what's described as dirty electric, where it's sold back to us. But I feel with more and more people starting to question things, this thing that's up in the sky is starting to have problems. So it's having to draw more power to keep it up there because it's electromagnetically stuck. It's shown in the Truman Show.
Because we'll get electrocuted for sure.
It's shown in the Truman Show. He steps outside and this light thing you'd have in like a film set suddenly drops in front of him, and he looks up at the sky. It's like, well, where did that come from? So I feel that they're showing this anyway. How much more it's going to take to actually disrupt? But if you look at the way the material world, the Bank of England was very close to collapsing a couple of weeks back. Well, this is why because
they want a recession. They want a recession.
Well, no, they're getting desperate because there's only so much you can create by printing more and more money.
You know what? I did this video a long time ago. It wasn't mine. It was actually Richard G. Hall's. He basically said, he was trying to make a point. He says, if you were living on an island and each one of you had £10,000, so that's 100,000, and an immigrant comes along, do you want him, and he wants to live on your island, do you want him to come with nothing or to come with 100,000? Which one would you choose?
Oh, with 100,000, same as everybody else, really.
No, because when you invite him, he then devalues your currency, bringing the 100,000. You need one that's got nothing, so he needs to work and earn money in your environment. Then he makes you money. So that's why lots of immigrants. That's why loads of immigrants are sent here to bolster our economy.
Well,
they come with nothing. They need accommodation. They need to be they need food. They need schooling. They need hospital. They need all. They get given it, as we know. They want immigrants to come here. And I don't mean it rudely, because we're all immigrants anyway from before. Even if it's 100, 200, 300 years ago, we're all immigrants. But that's why they get people to get in your country. Don't want them to have anything, because then they make you money. It's all a bit... I mean, that was just something from a long time ago. Maybe that's not correct, but that's what he was saying. But, James, I have to go. I don't want to end this, because it's been next time we say we're going to do double nothing, and then we'll have an even more amazing hangout, because this has been a really great hangout about nothing. It's not been about nothing. It's been very interesting. You've taught me a few more things today.
I just pointing out stuff, really.
Well, we can always, if people are really interested in this, we can always come back and do another video, another hangout about it, because you don't mind having hangouts with me, so that's cool.
As a sort of closing thought for the listeners, imagine you are a shepherd and you've got a herd of sheep and you want them to get them from one field to another. How would you do it? Would you open the gate and say, come in? Or would you intimidate them with a sheepdog so they all go into the new field, which is what you wanted all along? Now think of the pendulum on a clock, like with time, and think also politics swinging to the left, swinging to the right. What's going to happen in the United States over the next couple of years? You're going to see a complete swing where it's been deliberate sabotage by the Democrats.
Well, yeah, because basically half of Detroit's gone. It's basically they're living in an abandoned place.
The reason for that is part of a much longer plan. So you
Well, we probably all
do all
are,
these-
aren't we? It's the UK as well. Everybody's living, it's all abandoned around you, and they funneled us here, there, and everywhere, and we're not noticing how abandoned everything is and broken everything is.
I'm using this as what's going to happen with the states using the sort of the pendulum swing. So you put in the Democrats, which are going to do lots of sabotage things, which a lot of people aren't going to like. But with the purpose of then everybody is going to jump to the Republican side, which is what they want all along.
Yeah, because they're not elected; they're selected.
Yeah, but you entice people by doing one thing to push them the other way, because they always play both sides. Think of you can see the symbol in that drawing, like the square and compass, same pattern. Look. See what I mean?
Well,
yeah, so
should we leave people with a thought then, James?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I have to go. I'm really sorry, everybody. I was really into this hangout, but I have to go and see my granddaughter, and I was a bit late today. I had to go do something for Shirley, and I had to go in queue to get a prescription. Herded like animals outside. It took me nearly an hour to get in there. There was about 7 people in front of me, but when I got in there was another 7. You know, like the 7 in front of me now were in the shop. And everybody has to queue like that to get their prescriptions now. It's crazy. But anyway, James, I have to go because my little granddaughter's waiting for me.
Okay.
But I've really enjoyed that, and I hope that people have got something out of this. And if people are very interested, we can always do another one because James is deep, aren't you, James?
Yeah, well, I just look for a pattern in things, and then it's like, oh, I can see it there, I can see it there. It's like, I'll come on to that next time anyway.
Yeah, that'd be great, James. James, thank you so much. We'll say goodbye off air, but thank you so much for this hangout. I hope this all makes sense to you. Thank you very much, James. And 10:10 till we do it again.
Yeah.
All right then. Thank you, James.
Okay.
And thank you, chat room.